morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Hugh Mayers giving you a sports analysis. Yesterday, meaning Saturday 18th of May in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Tyson Fury fought Oleksandr Usyk for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Undisputed meaning all of the four belts from the main leading bodies, governing bodies of the professional boxing world: the WBC, the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO. The fight went a distance. It was a very interesting contest. Had me at the edge of my seat, and it was worthy of a deep dive. But I just want to give a little bit of background, really, just talk about the build-up, because this fight has been, a couple years in the making, in the sense that Alexander Usyk has been chasing the unification fight for some time with Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury, as slippery as he's been, has really messed him about, bobbed and weaved and messed him about, to actually grant him this opportunity and grant him the fight. However, Tyson fought in, I think it was as far back as December, when he fought Francis Ngannou, and he ended up getting floored and cut. And so there was a delay to the fight. And then, not cut, excuse me, he just got floored and had a difficult fight. So the fight was delayed. But then later on, earlier this year, a couple months back, Tyson got cut in training. And so the fight was postponed again. And but before even signing the fight, it took some time for them to agree to the terms and conditions and so on and so forth. And so it's been a long time coming for the fight to happen. And if I'm honest, I had my own reservations about whether or not the fight was actually going to take place. Was Tyson going to turn up? I had really strong doubts. I was one of those. There was some in that camp that thought, like people like professional boxer, former professional super middleweight champion George Groves, St. George Groves, that was saying, I can't see it, mate. You know what I mean? I can't actually see him turning up. So, and I was in that camp. I was even saying to my son, I'm not sure if this guy's going to turn up. I can't imagine him turning up for this fight. I don't think that he wants to, I don't think he wants to fight Usyk. I think he really has a lot of respect for his skills, and respects him as a champion. But Tyson Fury, being the person who is the master of deception, would call him a pumped up middleweight, called him a gap tooth sausage, and that, all kind of insults, manner of insults, and that, it's just like decoys. It's what boxers do. They don't really tell you about their fears, their insecurities, or their doubts, or whatever the case may be. It's a tough old game. But what I admire about boxing, in general, is that it's a true sport, in the sense of, the truth will be revealed. If there's anybody that's pretending, if there's anybody that has been overrated, if there's anybody that is a true warrior, whatever the case may be, it comes out in the ring. And I think this fight, more than anything else, it was an example of a reality check, and not for Tyson Fury per se. I think he knew what time it was even before going into the ring, and I'll mention some stuff about that after. But I think that he is, as I mentioned, the master of deception. And so over the years, he's built up a credibility in the eyes of the American media, in particular the British media. I think in American media, because he went and beat Deontay Wilder. And he fought a few fights in America that were quite entertaining. Him being a charismatic and talkative person as well, engaging character, and somebody that gives the media something to talk about, something to write about. He's ideal for the professional sport. And without sounding too, I don't want to come across as too critical of him, because I think that he actually is a fine athlete. He is a gifted boxer as such, but he just used to grind my gears. It just really annoys me. Would annoy me when I would hear commentators, and I can't say so-called, I'm talking about experts, people that have been in commentating, professional commentators, people that have been in the fight game for decades, talk about Tyson being quite possibly the best heavyweight of all time, and there may have been nobody to even beat him. Even people like Muhammad Ali, for example, or even the likes of Joe Louis or Lennox Lewis, would be able to beat Tyson because he's just too big, he's just too agile, he's just too much of a bit of a freak for them to beat. And so it'll be quite annoying that this guy has literally had 6 world title fights, three against the same guy, and one against Derek Chisora, and who he's beaten twice in the past, and one against Dylan White. So not exactly the depth of caliber of a Joe Lewis with his 23, what is it, 23 whatever world title fights, how many wins? Um, Similar number for Muhammad Ali, Lennox Lewis, something like 17, 18 world title fights. So these kind of guys that have been mentioned as all-time greats or legends, people like Larry Holmes, the Eastern Assassin, right? I had Mike Tyson. These guys are, they're into their, 15, 16 world title fights, win, lose, or draw, or whatever. There's a certain amount of caliber of opposition. They've beaten a certain amount of world champions. They've unified a title, things like that, or been recognized as a sole champion, as a unified world champion. And Tyson was just by beating this, very small caliber of world title, winning this small number of world title fights against, for the best part, limited opposition, because you got the Klitschko. All right, he was a legitimate champion, beat him fair and square. Horrible fight, but fair and square. And Deontay Wilder, yeah, I think he won the two second fights without question, both stoppages. The draw, controversial. Some people, he might have eked it out, but he did, take a few falls. He did give up some big rounds in that fight. So put that by the by. He hasn't had that depth. So it was crazy the way that the ratings that he was getting, they were gassing him up. And so I would use the analogy that Fury is there's a sleight of hand, or he's being overrated. But I'm not saying, I never thought he was absolutely garbage. So if I was using it as I was using precious metals as a analogy, I would say I'm not calling him, gold plated silver, I mean, passed off as gold. But I would say the way they would speak about this guy is as if he was 18 karat gold or 22 karat gold. And nah, he's 9 karat. It's gold, it's real, but it's not as precious and as magnificent as these commentators were presenting. So yeah, so that was something that would grind my gear. So it was there was a level of chickens coming home to roost for me. The other thing as well is this whole thing about, just in general, whoever the person may be, put Tyson Fury aside, that a good big and would always beat a good little, and not true. And boxing is about the sweet science. Yeah, and that is what Oleksandr Usyk used to beat this guy that outweighed him by almost 40 pounds, towered over him from by about 4 inches, and had how many inches extra arm length, advantage. So he had all these physical advantages, and he was a younger man. I'll say is the younger man. So there's all these advantages, physical advantages, you know what I'm saying, that Tyson Fury enjoyed over Alexander Usyk. But because boxing is a truth, it will come out in the ring. And the truth of the matter is that this guy, Alexander Usyk, is very decorated at a lower weight class, right? So he's unified the cruiserweight division, right? He's come up, he's fought, was it Chad Witherspoon, Derek Chisora, that he's beat AJ twice. Yeah, and then he's beaten a young contender, not pretender, but a young up and coming, but a somewhat of a rookie in Daniel Dubois. And been pursuing this unification fight with Tyson Fury. But apart from him being a smaller man, he's a much more decorated, legitimate world champion at a lower weight class, and has that Olympic, an amateur world class pedigree. So what the fight proved is that it's about a battle of wills as well as skill, but the mindset. He had the mindset and he had the mentality to really push the fight from the off and not buy into Tyson Fury's tricks. These are some of the tricks that Tyson Fury would use. Lay back on the back foot, and if he makes you miss, or he lands one light giveaway punch, nothing special, he showboats for the rest of the round, or makes a meal of it, so to present that he's really winning the fight and doing something. And he tried it a few times in the early rounds, but the main thing is that Usyk never bought into it. He never stood back and watched him and became absorbed in what Tyson was doing. He was dead set on pressing the pace and keeping Tyson Fury under pressure. So he was on the front foot throughout the fight, pushing the action. Even if he wasn't letting his hands go, he was shuffling and shimmying and just making his moves to put Tyson under pressure. So Tyson Fury was working pretty hard. I had the fight down as a fight of let's say 3/3. I'll put it as a 3/3 thing, and I'd say that Usyk won the first third of the fight. He won, irrespective of what them biased British commentators were saying on TNT Sports, absolute terribly biased. But I would have said that Usyk won the best of the first 4 rounds, whether it was 3-1. Yeah, I think he won the first 3 rounds, and then Tyson came into it. He started to land the odd uppercut, hard body punch downstairs, or the odd uppercut. He landed quite a significant uppercut in one of those rounds. I think it was the 5th or the 6th round, and it did look like he knocked Usyk out of gear. And so Tyson took over this middle third of the fight. The 5, the 6, the 7. He started to he didn't really put shots together, but he was starting to dominate the action. Like score here and there, and you could see that Usyk was trying to still push the action, but he became more cautious, and his work rate had sort of dropped off a little bit. So Tyson clearly won that portion. But then in the 8th, I don't know how Usyk did it, but it's that thing about that will, and that I guess it's that background of having how many hundreds of amateur fights, and so having that kind of muscle memory and that self-belief to sort of bite down and not waver in the heat of the battle. When the kitchen really gets hot and we test the metals for their genuineness, right? In the cauldron, in the fire, right? He didn't really melt. He didn't turn like a popsicle. So he was able to bite down in his gum shield and step his game up and come out in the 8th round and take the 8th round and like really start pushing the action again. And then, whoa, in that sensational 9th round, because Tyson Fury's got these kind of like long arms, but sometimes as the fight goes on, when he throws his 1-2, his gloves can kind of like move back towards his waist, and so his guard is wide open. So Tyson threw a combination, and Usyk came over the top of it. Wow, wow. The southpaw straight jab, the right jab, and the left, rear hand, the power punch came and cracked him. His eyes looked like they went into separate orbits, and then Usyk basically jumped on him and started to pressure, and Tyson was gone, and he was bouncing from one corner, from one corner to the next corner, and from the next corner to the next, just bouncing around. The referee was almost looked like he wanted to jump in. The fight could have easily, or some would say, and I'd agree, right, should have been actually stopped then, because he could not. He was in no condition to defend himself, and if they had stopped it, there wasn't anybody that really could have complained and said that was an early stoppage. I've seen many fights stopped when a fighter was much more capable and they have much more control of themselves. He was staggering and wobbling. Anyway, what looked a little bit shady though, was the way that the referee was almost in the way or just right on top of the action. And he bounced off one rope. Usyk bopped him, knocked him about a bit. He bounced off another rope. Usyk bopped him, backed him, backing him into a corner. When Usyk got him, he staggered into one part of the ring and fell onto the ropes. And Usyk was just about to, decimate him. That's when the referee stepped in to give that rule. That there's a rule that if it's only the ropes holding you up, then the referee can step in and give you a standing count, right? There's no actual standing count in professional boxing per se, outside of if it's just the ropes keeping you up. But my argument is that the ropes were just keeping him up for about 3-4 times before that. So why didn't the referee jump in then and give him the count? But it just looked like just as Usyk had lined him and he was at his most vulnerable, that's when the referee stopped it, gave him an extraordinarily long count, and then had this kind of back and forth and conversation with him. Instead of just saying, do you want to fight? Wiping his gloves. If he says yes, box. He was having this long, slow conversation with him, and then the round ended. And so it gave him a little bit of a respite. I think Usyk had used a lot of his energy to try and get Tyson out of there. So it was a slow 10th round, but Usyk took that round and basically took the last third of the fight. But in particular with that big 9th round, the 8th, clearly the 9th, a big round, and that last third of the fight again, he more or less took that. So you'd have to say that he won, in my eyes. Tyson won 4 rounds, Usyk won 8, but the 9th round was big as a 2-point round. And at best, you could have given Tyson 5, but still Usyk winning, 7 out of the 12, and one of them being a big 2-point round. So yeah, man, he clearly won. So when they said split decision, I actually didn't think they was going to even give it to Usyk. I thought the boxing politics was going to win the day. I actually thought they was going to give the fight to not give the fight to Fury, but call it a draw. To call it a draw, and so they could come again either for a rematch or Tyson Fury could sail off with an unbeaten record and his belt and go and fight AJ for cuckoo money. But no, the right guy won, and it is what it is. And yeah, the truth was revealed that Tyson is a good fighter, but he's not the best heavyweight of all time. And the fact that this small man, this cruiserweight that's not a big puncher but is a technician, was able to empty his gas tank and mess him up like that, just shows to me that, I mean, we'll never know because he won't be fighting the fighters of old. They're from different generations. But it kind of confirmed, I think, to the people who were deluded of how good that Tyson was, that he would have just dominated Mike Tyson in his era, or dominated a Larry Holmes, or dominated a Muhammad Ali, or whatever the case may be. Like now you know, I think the reality is setting that he's good. We're not, you can't say he's garbage or he's a fake, but overrated, you know, just overrated, just overrated. So yeah, the truth came out. The other thing as well about the truth, right, was about the sweet science, that it's not just about size, no pun intended, but size isn't everything. As I've heard it said. I mean, I wouldn't know, you know what I mean? But yeah, this is the sort of sweet science dominated, not just wingspan, body weight, height, things of this nature. Those are the things that people use to win a fight, but that in and of itself is not just a given. You know, if you have a man that's much more gifted or more proficient in certain areas, which Usyk clearly was, much more of a tactician, much more of a disciplinarian, then yeah, he was able to you could see he could dig into that reservoir. When a fight got tough, he was able to dig into that psychological reservoir that kept him going and pushing and not, you know, not doubting in himself. He believed in his skills. You could see that belief in his athleticism, even when the fight got hot, even when he got not buckled, but he got nailed a couple times, and he was, you know, Tyson leaned in on him and asked him a few questions. You could say, so to speak, you know, pushing him, that he actually was able to answer, come back blazing and to answer. So yeah, this guy proved that he's a super athlete. And I think the other thing that really stands out for me, and like I said, what I love about this sport is that it's the truth, in the sense of those who live the life, that anybody that knows about boxing has followed it. I don't follow Usyk's career deeply, but I have followed his, you know, some of his fights, and you know, watched stuff about his training camps, and you know, kept up to speed with a few bits and pieces about him. And the thing that stands out, he's the like, I guess most of the top Eastern Bloc fighters, they don't tend to be the people that are out at midnight in strip clubs and champagne and throwing it up and stuff like that. These guys tend to be a bit more, you know, they're kind of ex-Soviet bloc. They box in a certain style, but they kind of live a life, or they are really professional and very, very disciplined. And I think that Tyson, talented as he is, I think he hasn't lived a life. He hasn't been the truer in terms of the warrior code. He hasn't been the truer. He's a person that's gone up to 30 stones and 25 stones, and I think put on massive amounts of weight in between fights, and you know, abused his body and been on the old Charlie and been on the you know, the old bevies and everything like that over the years, eating himself to oblivion. Right. Yeah, he's had his mental health issues, and you know, he's overcome, you know, suicidal ideation and stuff like that. So I big him up for that still. And he's done well for himself. He's made a shed load of money. Very entertaining. Good talker. I think he's a master psychologist. I think he's absolutely brilliant. When it comes to the mind games in boxing, I'd say that, yeah, I put him up there with everybody. I put him up there with the best of the best of the best in terms of getting in people's heads and bamboozling people and tricking people and whatever the case may be. I think he is that good in that sense. And boxing is a big part of it is mental, but he he just bumped into somebody that he couldn't get in their head. You know, that his normal antics, you know, just didn't work. You know, the things that would work 9 times out of 10. This was just that one time out of 10 where he just wasn't going to work. And so yeah, it came up short. But no disgrace. Do you know what I mean? No disgrace, and it was a good fight. But yeah, he's not somebody that's lived a life. So I think that abuse, you saw that check come cashing in around 9 when he got nailed on the chin, because he wasn't technically supposed to get hurt in that kind of way by a smaller fighter who isn't known to be a big puncher. You know, that's a grand irony. But no, he came apart of the seams, man. He was gone worse than even in the fights with Wilder. He was staggering all over the gaff. So yeah, it just goes to show that you know, you got to live the life, or you know, that it can catch up with you. You know, it can catch up with you. But they say rematch in October. I think that will fighters say all kind of stuff when the adrenaline is still pumping. But I think that when he goes home, sits down, and goes to eat like some food, like eat some salty, chips with salt and vinegar, and he feels them the stinging in his mouth, and he feels them cuts, or probably tries to get up out the armchair, and he's like aching and whatever, and all that. The pain from the fight kicks in, and not just the pain from the fight, but the training camp, what these guys have to put their bodies through to get into shape, and especially like a 19-stone guy, it's no mean feat. So he will not be ready for October if he does even come back for a rematch. Um, yeah, if he does come back for a rematch, he will not. That's not going to happen in October, in my opinion. I don't think so. I can't see it. I don't think this guy's in it for the money. He loves a pound note, right? But he's made a few. He's made a few, so he don't need it for the money. I suspect with those hard fights against um Deontay Wilder and not living the life, between those two things, and then that fight last night was taxing as well for him. I actually think his body's packing up. Do you know what I mean? I think that his ability to go to the well and dig deep, his punch resistance and things of that nature are starting to wane. So it wouldn't be a bad time for him to. I'm not saying he shouldn't come back. He's still young enough and fit enough that if he really wants to, he could. But it wouldn't be no shame to walk away. So it's going to be interesting to see how he plays it, and if he goes for the AJ fight, goes for the rematch with Usyk, or what's going to take place. And from my point of view, I don't think Oleksandr Usyk has got nothing more to prove. I think he's already made a pound note for himself, and it's more about pride and principle. That, you know what, even if he didn't give Fury the rematch and he bowed out at the top, I mean, I couldn't disrespect him for that. But if he gave him the rematch, I think it probably would end the same way. Tyson might come a bit better, but I think Usyk will step up and be that bit more technical and a bit more confident, knowing that he could hurt him like that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they go from next. But yeah, absolutely entertaining fight, excellent fight. Shout out to my big bro for hosting me. And then, what I mean, well, and for us to share the evening together watching a really good fight. Till next time, I'm going to sign out with my sports analysis. But I think I want to close out by saying, yeah, the warrior code prevailed. The truth prevailed. The truth prevailed. The true warrior, the disciplinarian, the technician, the person that lived the life. That the right guy won. The right guy won. Till next time, peace. Hey guys, thanks for watching the podcast. And if you enjoyed it, remember to smash the like button and feel free to leave a comment, to share, and even click on the subscribe button for your free subscription. Till next time, peace.
Boy,